Bill Henson got in trouble for depicting underage girls undressed for the sexualization of children, but there's something in the way that your young girls are overdressed and excessively modest, which is also perverse and kind of creepy. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Well, I think that just the complete lack of any skin, it's almost like, is there a body under there, or is it, I imagine it's like a chrysalis with something pupating under the surface. And it's the fact that we can't see that it makes it slightly scary and disturbing. I like the Victorian, the gloved, the tightly laced and enclosed kind of costume. So it stemmed from an interest in the Victorian era, because when I was a child I collected antiques, and I was really quite obsessed with the costuming from a specific period. So I think things that have always resonated with me just seem to continue on into my photographs.
I wanted to ask you about the title, because limpet seems to combine limpid, which means translucent, limpet, a sticky crustacean, limp, wounded or flaccid. A lot of your characters you invent names for, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about those invented wordplay names.
Well, it's just an interest in the way syllables connect with each other, and the fact that they're quite ambiguous. I don't really like to sort of have a prescribed narrative. I don't really like to sort of spoon feed the viewer. So I think made-up names are completely ambiguous in that sense. And limpet was inspired by the crustacean. I just really like the word, and the fact that it's something that clings on, that can't be removed. There's something kind of slightly desperate about its tenacity that I like.
Yesterday you showed me something that I'd never seen before, that on, I don't know what it is that she's holding in her hand, some kind of...
Foliage.
Foliage. Are written the words, please help me. What does she need to be helped from?
Well, I just like sometimes to encode words into my pictures, and if you go up and inspect it, you'll see it written very faintly on the black circle of the berries. But I like the idea of it being a microscopic plea that's barely perceptible. And I don't know what she needs help with, but I just feel that she probably does.
There's another work in the series called Romanian Orphan. And there's something about the depiction of children, damaged, distressed, forlorn, that makes us feel good, because it makes us feel concerned and sympathetic. So it touches something in us that makes us feel that we're good people, and that's why we like images of children who are forlorn and distressed. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about Romanian Orphan.
Well, I like the idea of portraying an orphan from Eastern Europe, which is, notorious for the orphan trade, as being totally idealised and ripe for adoption in the way that animals in pet shops are, or, things for sale are presented to their best, But I was also interested in just a slightly unpleasant situation being made palatable. And in some ways, the type of photography I use, which is large format transparency film, it's the kind of setup geared for advertising imagery and product shots, is used for other purposes. So I think almost in some ways I photograph people as if they are objects, just because the camera I use doesn't really allow for much movement and spontaneity. My subjects have to be very still and static, and in that way I feel that sometimes the people I photograph take on the role of products, and I think that's an example of the Romanian orphan image.
There's a kind of an aristocracy of suffering in the work. The photographs look like formal portraits, like you might see in a stately home, or highly produced photographs that you might see in a magazine or a book. And it seems to me that suffering, damage, malaise, are things that people are actually quite proud of, that people show their wounds and in fact compete to be more exemplary sufferers than others. And it seems your work taps into that. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Well, I think anything with a sense of the dramatic has its appeal, and I think it can be utilised by people for whatever reasons, whether it's sympathy or attention. As a child, I was desperate for attention because my parents both worked and are both accountants, so the conversation in our home was always really mind-numbingly boring discussions about tax, and so I needed to be recognised, so I often faked illnesses, and I once tried to break my leg by jumping out of a tree, but and I pretended to be paralysed as well. So I can relate to the need to use something relating to illness for attention. Yet, I suppose some of my images I've had people on crutches and in a wheelchair, but not usually. Usually it's just sort of expressed within their face. But I also think humour is very important, and despite the misery, I hope that people find that there is a slightly humorous element as well.
Are you laughing at the disabled?
No, no. It's more my own personal desire. As a child, a girl in my class broke her leg and got a Walkman, and it was more a really deep sense of envy I felt because she got attention. And also I had an asthmatic cousin who was the special child in the family because she was delicate. So it was that experience that shaped my interest in illness. I mean, I have no desire to be ill now, but as a child it was very different, but it was purely an attention-seeking device.